All right, let's go ahead and get started. I'll pray for us. Father, thank you for the great privilege of being at Bryan College, for being able to read your word. Thank you for the beauty of your word and the power of your word, the simplicity of your word and the complexity of your word. I pray that as we begin this journey to look at the Old Testament, I pray that you encourage us. I pray for those in this class who are strong believers that this class will strengthen faith. I pray that this class will encourage us to study your word more. Father, I pray that in this class, for those who are young believers, maybe never have read the Old Testament, that this class would be a game changer, a means of grace to encourage all of us to read your word more. Father, I pray for those in this class who are on the fence about Christianity, those who wonder, is there really anything to all this? Is it true? Is it not true? I pray that this class will be a means of grace and to help us see exactly what your word is saying. And Father, I know that in any gathering there are people who will be committed that the Bible isn't true. And Father, I thank you that this is a safe place. And I pray for those who are committed that the Bible isn't true, that this will be a great opportunity to examine just the arguments for and against. Father, I pray you help us today as we look at the beginning and end of the Bible. And I pray in all of it that Jesus will be glorified. For it's in his name that we pray. Amen. So this is BIB 222, Old Testament Literature and Interpretation. And I love this class. I love the discussion nature of this class. I think you're going to love this class as well. What we're going to look at today is Genesis 1 and 2 in light of a whole Bible biblical theology. And what I mean by that is when we come to the Bible and we look at the beginning of the Bible, how do you understand it in light of the whole? Now, just some housekeeping things, a couple of things I want you to do. One is I want you to take the attendance quiz in Brightspace, and I'm going to show you how to do that just here in a second. And I hope that many of you got the email that I did want you to do your homework questions and post those as the class is starting. I know that some of you may not have gotten that message. That's okay. The Bible is about grace, so we can cope with that. But what I want you to do on a normal basis is to prepare for this class, and then we'll come and have a discussion. Well, how do we do that? If you go to your Brightspace account, how many of you have been on your Brightspace account? Okay, so if you pull up your Brightspace account, and if you go under content right here, it's going to pull up week 1. And there are two things I want you to do. One is take this attendance quiz. Now, the attendance quiz is going to be just terribly hard every day. It's going to have one question. And the question is, true, false, I am here in this class today. Now, I know that's going to be really hard, And I know you're going to have to really study to pass that quiz every day, but that's how we're going to keep attendance. So if you'll log in to the attendance quiz 1, it should pull up a quiz with one question that says, I'm here today. Has anybody been able to pull that up? Good. Anybody else pull this up? So you have to go to Brightspace. You'll have to go to attendance quiz 1. When you do that, either on your phone or on your computer, it will have a true-false quiz. And if you say true, I'm here today, then what that's going to do is give you 3.5 points for being in class today. It's going to make up 15% of your grade for this class. So every day when you come in, we'll start off with the attendance quiz, and how you get there is by going to this content page. Now, the second thing I want you to do is under this week 1 notebook. Now, every day for every lecture, we'll have a series of questions. So the series of questions that I wanted you to do today was homework 1. Take time, answer those questions, and then you'll upload that here. And you can upload as many files as you want. So what you'll do for Monday, Wednesday, and Friday is simply, as you work through this, you'll just add the files to your weekly notebook. At the end of the week, I or my grader will grade this, and that will be one of the 14 weekly homework notebooks that you'll do. And that will make up a very large portion of your grade. I think it's about 36% of your grade, something like that. Maybe it's 30% of your grade. And I know that there are some weeks that you may need off, busy week, whatever. So you only have to do 12 of the 14 weeks that we'll meet. You'll get to drop 2 of those notebooks. But on a normal week, and if you do all of them, I'll just take the highest of the 12 out of the 14, but that will make up the majority of your grade. So whenever we come into class every day, that's where we'll start, attendance quiz, and by the time the class starts, I want you to have uploaded the homework for that day. Are there any questions about that? If you haven't been able to sign in, it's always nice to have a plan B. So I have a plan B here. If you weren't able to do the attendance quiz, you can sign in, maybe learn from your fellow students how to do the quiz. But normally we'll just do the quiz, you'll take it. And then after that, I want to ask that we would kind of detach from the electronic world. I know that can be very, competing for our attention. So take the quiz, upload your homework, and then we'll detach and we'll just talk about this together. So are there any questions about that? All right, so if you have any problems with any of it, you can email me and we will work through it. So what are we going to do today? The first thing we're going to do today is we're going to observe the beginning and the end of the Bible. And one of the things that I hope everyone will take away from this class is to realize that the beginning and the end of the Bible are connected. If you want to know what the Bible is about, if you want to understand, if you want to put the pieces of the Bible together, a very important key to doing that is understanding that the Bible's connected. Genesis 1, 1 and 2, Revelation 21 and 22, they're perfectly connected, and that's going to help us understand all kinds of things in the Bible, all kinds of easy things in the Bible and all kinds of difficult things. Another thing that we're going to do, and we're not going to avoid in this class, will be the questions. When we read text, we're not going to shy away from the hard text. And so you come and you read a text and you're going to say, well, what are the questions that you have? When you read this text, when you work through it, what are the things that come to mind? A lot of what we'll do in this class will be what are the connections? How are the stories connected? And then lastly, what does it mean for me? Okay, this is all artistic stuff, interesting stuff, but what does it mean for me today? So that's going to be our orientation today, and so let's dive in. And so you might ask, what in the world is this? This is actually a visible representation of the Bible and the places in the Bible that are connected to other places in the Bible. So someone went through and just drew lines to all the passages that are connected to each other. And what do you notice about this drawing? You know, what do you notice if this is Genesis 1 and this is Revelation 22? What do you notice about these stories? Well, it's kind of obvious that these stories are connected. If you want to understand what these stories are about, realize that these stories are building off each other. And so an example might be, you know, God comes to the watery, dark mass in Genesis 1 and he divides the waters. Well, doesn't that exact same thing happen at the Red Sea? God comes to a dark, chaotic, deadly water, and what does he do? He parts the waters, and what happens? Dry land appears. You start thinking about the whole thing and you realize, oh my goodness, these stories, the way to understand these stories is to realize that this is a meta-narrative and there's a connection, that the scenes in this are building off of each other. And so what we want to look at today is that Genesis 1, 1 and 2 and Revelation 21 and 22 are connected. And that's why in the homework I wanted you to read through those passages. And I just wanted you to see, okay, what's there. And if you work through that, you might have picked up that both passages talk about the tree of life. In fact, the only place in the Bible where the term the tree of life appears is in the Garden of Eden, and then the restoration of the Garden of Eden in Revelation 21 and 22. Both passages talk about the river of life, and a little later as we dive into one of the difficult problems in biblical interpretation, where's the Garden of Eden, we're going to see that just knowing that the Bible is connected is going to help us think through that difficult issue, where's the Garden of Eden. Both passages have God intimately communing with his people. One is in a garden, one is in a city. You might think of the city as the developed Garden of Eden or the restoration of the Garden of Eden, but God has immediate fellowship with his people there. And I don't know if you've thought about this, but the Bible starts with a cosmic wedding of this man and woman who are going to be this cosmic power couple, who together will be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth, subdue it, rule over the birds of the air and the fish of the sea and all the things that creep on the ground. So the Bible starts with a cosmic wedding. It ends with a cosmic wedding. And both passages talk about this entity that's called the dragon or the serpent. The Bible sets up these two groups of people, the seed of the serpent and the seed of the woman. And so there's a connection there between these two stories. And what we're going to see is over and over again that these are going to help us understand how to understand. And in fact, everything in the middle. Everything in the middle, we're going to say, how is it connected here? How is it connected there? So, what do we need to do? Well, what we need to do whenever we come to any text is just observe. Just read through it. I invite you, when you do this in your homework, to get a piece of paper and just write down the things that you see. Whatever comes to you, just read through it and write down. And if we did that, we could do that right now, and it would say this. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, and the earth was formless and void. Weird words, universally negative in the Bible. And darkness was over the face of the deep. Darkness, the domain of darkness, the prince of darkness, another negative word in the text. Darkness was on the face of the deep. Weird word in the original language, translated in the ancient Greek translation as the abyss. What we know about the abyss is that demons begged Jesus not to send them to the abyss. And when we end up this story in Revelation, you see that the enemies of God, the seed of the serpent, that's where they're thrown, into the bottomless abyss. Negative things until we get here, and the Spirit of God was moving over the waters. The Ruach of God, the wind of God, the breath of God, the Spirit of God moving over the face of the waters. And God said, let there be light. There was light. God saw the light was good. God separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening and morning, day one. First thing we want to do when we read through the text is just observe things. In fact, that's the most important thing you can do in this class. I believe that the Bible, that God means the Bible for normal people. He means it to communicate his truth. And because God's an effective communicator, just looking at the text, reading the text, asking good questions of the text, that's going to help us go a long way in understanding what God's Word is. Now, how do we do that? Well, you want to start by picking out a good translation. And translations do different things. I love the ESV. That's probably the translation that I go to the most in English. Fairly recent translation. On this spectrum of word for word, thought for thought, it's pretty much word for word. The most literal is the New American Standard 1995 update. They will go word for word even when it obscures the English grammar, but if you want to know what it is, well, that's what you'll do. If you want more a thought for thought, you might go with the New Living Translation. That's a very good one. The NIV is kind of a merging of the two. If you ask me, well, which translation should I read? I would say read all of them. They're all good. They all can help you. But pick one, read through the text, ask questions. Now, if you ask me, like, read through the text, and make observations, I'm going to read through the original text. I'm going to go to the Hebrew Bible, the Greek Bible, and I'm going to read through and see the original languages that they were written in. That's going to give me a little bit of an advantage in interpretation in terms of quickness, but there's nothing that I'm going to see in the original that you can't see if you get 2 or 3 good translations. So pick one, read through it. When you come to a place you don't understand, maybe get 2 or 3 different translations. That will help you. Whenever we come to this class and I ask you to read through a portion of Scripture, one of the things that I'm going to do before we come to this class, I'm going to read through it in the original language. And when I did this last night with this text, I just made a list of some things that I noticed reading through. One is that in that statement, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, that there's a really weird thing about the word God in Hebrew. It's this word Elohim. And on Wednesday, we're going to see that the word Elohim is actually a plural word. Elsewhere in the Hebrew Bible, it's translated the word gods. It can't be translated gods in Genesis 1 because the verbs, and we're going to look at this on Wednesday, the verbs are singular. So in Hebrew, it says something like, in the beginning, he, that is this plural being called Elohim, he created the heavens and the earth. 3 words into the Hebrew Bible, we have that. And the same is true of in chapter 2 with the word Yahweh, which is capital L-O-R-D in Hebrew. That word is written in such a way that Jews won't say it. Instead, they say this word Adonai. In fact, they teach us when we begin to learn Hebrew not to say the word YHWH, Yahweh or Jehovah. Instead, say the word Adonai. And the word Adonai is really weird because while the word Yahweh is singular, the word Adonai is actually plural. And if you ask a Hebrew person, what does the word Adonai mean? They would say Adonai means literally my lords. So you have this really weird thing in the text of God when he's describing himself, and this occurs on every single page thousands and thousands of times. God is describing himself as this singular entity that is somehow at the same time plural. That happens on every single page in the Hebrew Bible. Another thing in the Hebrew Bible that's just interesting to me are the repeated phrases. And so you have this phrase, and there was evening and there was morning, blank. And if you read that passage carefully, you might have picked up that one day omits that phrase. It's included in 6 out of the 7 days, but one day omits that phrase. In fact, in Hebrew, the description of those days are really weird. Day 1, a second day, a third day, a fourth day, a fifth day, the 6th day in Hebrew. And I'm reading through that and I think, why in the world are you calling some a second day and some the day? See the phrase, God saw that it was good. That appears in every single day except one. One day, God doesn't call what he creates good on that day. And I don't know about you, but as an intelligent reader of the text, I want to know why. Why does God on that one day omit the phrase, and God saw that it was good. I see in the text that the text has, and God said. And if you take time to go through and just count up, and God said, you might see that that phrase appears 10 times. Vayomer Elohim in Hebrew. Well, what's interesting about that to me is Jews will call the 10 Commandments the 10 words. The Divrei Asheret or something like that, the 10 words, and so they're calling the 10 Commandments the 10 words. And it's weird to me that God in 10 words gives the covenant at Sinai, and in 10 words he creates the universe. That's interesting to me. I see the phrase, and God called. And what's really interesting to me about that is that God creates stuff and then he calls it something. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. What's that is when God creates Adam, he has Adam do a godlike thing in that Adam names the animals. So he brings the animals and Adam calls them something. Now right here, some people are going to come to someone like me who's a conservative Christian, and I believe the Bible is true, and they're going to say, this right here is a problem. Because when it says, and God called, Adam, same word in Hebrew, calls his wife Eve. Her name means life. And many people are going to say, that shows that the Bible is somehow anti-woman. Because God is naming the stuff he created, and then Adam, in this godlike thing where he names the animals, he ultimately names Eve. And we're going to look at that. We're just not going to look at it today. But there is a beautiful meta-narrative. Once you start realizing the connections of the story, there's a beautiful answer to that. We're just not going to look at it today. God separated. This is a religious word everywhere else. God separating holy people from unholy people. But we see that God separates the light from the darkness. He separates the waters above from the waters below. And then all created things he creates to reproduce after their kind. And so this idea of separation is important. We can't see it in English, but the word separate, badal, is related to this word bdellium. And you might have read when you looked at the Eden things that one of the rivers has bdellium. And if we read the whole story, manna, we're told, looks like bdellium. And so is there some kind of separation there? And then a phrase we're going to look at, these are the toledos of, these are the generations of. 13 times in the Old Testament, 1 time in the New Testament. Another thing that seems interesting to me is that when you read 1:1 to 2:3, that the actor there is Elohim. But once you get to 2:5, the actor is Yahweh Elohim. And I don't know, did any of you notice when you read through the accounts that the two accounts seem slightly different? Did anyone notice that? In fact, many people are pointing out that the order seems different. In one, you've got the creation of man and woman, and it appears together, but the creation of man and woman seems to be separate in 2 and following. There seems to be a problem with the order of events. You've got plants created on the 3rd day in Genesis 1, and in Genesis 2 and following, you've got the creation of man, and it says in the text, this was before a certain type of plant sprouted. And a lot of people find that very disconcerting, and there is a beautiful, beautiful answer to it. We're just going to postpone that answer for a little while. And then there's some really weird language to do with Adam. So in the text, as you read through, you might have read the name Adam a few times, and you might have seen the word man a few times. In the Hebrew text, those are the exact same words. And what you have is Adam and then Ha-Adam. And usually the translators will translate Ha-Adam. Ha means the. And so instead of saying it the Adam, they'll translate it the man. But in the Hebrew text, it's the exact same word. And I want to know the difference. What's the difference between Adam and Ha-Adam? Why does God address Adam sometimes as Adam and sometimes as the Adam? But that's happening all through the Hebrew text. And then a really weird thing, and this goes back to our problem here, is that in the text, we have this strange phrase, when God creates the woman, it says he house builds her. When God made the man, he took dirt, he created a dirt doll, an Adam from the Ha-Adamah, an Adam from the Adamah. But when God creates the woman, that's not how he creates the woman. When he creates the woman, he takes some of the essence of the man, and then he house builds the woman. That seems weird to me. Why is the difference? Okay, when we started this talk off, remember we talked about how the end of the Bible and the beginning of the Bible are connected. Have you ever thought about this in the story? That the story of the Bible is one man comes naked to a tree, and in a momentary act of disobedience, that man, that Adam, spiritually murdered the entire human race, and he did it because his wife wanted to be God. Have you ever thought about this, that at the conclusion of this story, that God has become man? God lived under his own law, never sinning once in thought, word, or deed. And then the God-man, the new Adam, the second Adam, comes to a tree. And at that tree, it's not the living tree of Adam, it's a dead tree. But at that tree, the God-man is stripped naked. We often don't think of the crucifixion as naked, but historically crucifixions were naked, and even the text tells us they ripped up Jesus' outer clothes and they gambled for his inner clothes. And if your outer clothes are gone and your inner clothes are gone, you're naked. The God-man comes naked to a tree, and by being murdered, he unmurders anyone who will ever come to him by faith. The first woman wanted to be God, and so to fix this problem in the text, God becomes man. The first woman talked her husband into sinning against God. And as he sinned against God, he brought disaster and ruin to everyone. The God-man is now persuading and enabling his bride, the church, to obey God. The first man and the woman in Genesis 1 were told to be fruitful, to multiply, to fill the earth, to subdue it, to rule over. They're going to be this cosmic power couple. They're going to rule together over all God's creation. Together, they're going to be the image of God. And what happens is that goes to chaos. They're to rule over the creeps in the ground, and instead they get ruled over by the creep of the ground. The God-man is coming to fix that, and how he fixed that is by dying for one woman, his bride, the church. And it's his intent to make her the empress of the universe. And so you see that just as Adam is calling his wife Eve, the new Adam is calling his wife perfect and righteous and without spot or blemish. This all is connected. These stories are connected. This word house built, in Greek, it's the word oika demeo, house built, the word house and the word build. This is translated edify in the New Testament. Now that makes it hard for us to see, but just as God house built Eve and then brought Eve to Adam, God is oikodemeoing the church. And what do we get at the end of the story? God is bringing that glorious, perfect woman to her husband, the new Adam. The Bible is a grand meta-narrative, and all the things in the text that are difficult, every single one that's difficult, once you start understanding the meta-narrative, it starts making sense, because God meant this story as a revelation of his Son. Now, I want this class to be more interaction. I don't want this class to be a lecture. What questions do you have about that? Just as we look at it. The Bible's connected. The beginning and end of the Bible is connected. There's a lot of weird stuff that happens in the beginning. A lot of that weird stuff finds its solution when you understand that it's related to the meta-narrative. Questions or observations? Do you have any questions or observations about that? All right. Well, I was going to read this for you. This is what the text looks like. It says something like this: Bereshit bara Elohim et ha-shamayim va'et ha'aretz, v'ha'aretz hayita tohu v'bohu, v'hoshek al pnei tehom ve'ruach, Elohim merachefet al pnei hamayim. V'yar Elohim yehi or v'yehi or, v'yar Elohim et ha'or kitov v'yavdel, Elohim bein ha'or uvein ha'hoshek, v'yikra Elohim le or yom ve'lahoshek kara la'yilah, v'hi erev v'hi boker yom echad. Now that's beautiful, isn't it, when you hear it? But that looks like chaos, doesn't it, when you look at it on the thing? The reason it looks like chaos is because this is within 600 years of being the oldest written anything on planet Earth. This text, the only thing written that we have that's older than this text are the hieroglyphics in the pyramids. 600 years from being the oldest written anything on planet Earth. But the nice thing is, even though, it'd be nice if we understood this, God in his wisdom knew that you don't have to understand this. Best commentary on the Bible is the Bible. And we can do that commentary work in our native language with a good study Bible. And once you've gotten your questions, one of the things you can always do is just go look at the other places in the Bible that are talking about this. Look up the cross references. Bible's connected. When you get to a place where you don't understand something, look up the cross references. That's what we're going to do. Tomorrow or Wednesday, we're going to see that Genesis 1 is connected to John 1, that this thing about the plurality of God is being explained. We've got light and darkness. In him was life. And remember how we said that Eve's name, that Adam named Eve? Eve in Hebrew is the word Hava, or some people say Chava, but Hava is the word life. And I don't know if you've ever thought about this, but just as Eve came out of Adam, is this playing with that somehow? And you've got light shining in the darkness. God said, let there be light, and there was light. Best commentary on the Bible is the Bible. Same thing here, quoting, let the light shine out of darkness. Well, how is he understanding that passage? Well, we can see it. All we have to do is look up the cross references. So, in the 8 minutes we have left, I want to share with you the passage in Scripture that when I was a young 18-year-old believer just put me in catatonic fits because I didn't know what to do with it. I knew the Bible was true, but there's an apparent discrepancy when you get, this is like 40 verses into the Bible, and you start trying to find the Garden of Eden. This is probably the picture you would draw. One river that becomes 4 rivers, flows around Cush and Havilah and the Tigris and Euphrates. That should be really easy to find. In fact, this is the map that I did about 20 years ago before I saw the Anchor Bible. And what do you notice about the map? The two maps are really similar. In fact, other than the order of the rivers, they're exactly the same. Because when you come to the text, that's what the text means. There's a river that splits into 4 rivers. Find the place where those 4 rivers come together and you've found the Garden of Eden. That should be really simple to do. As a young believer, I tried to do that with a map, and here's the problem. The problem in the Bible, Cush, is ancient Ethiopia. Now, Ethiopia today is like right here on the map, but ancient Ethiopia is here. And you can see that the river that flows through Cush is the Nile River. And we know where the Euphrates is and where the Tigris is. And you start looking for one river that becomes 4 rivers, and it doesn't work because the Tigris and Euphrates don't touch each other. And because the Nile flows in this direction and the Tigris and Euphrates flow in this direction. So what did I do? I started going to books for help, and they started telling me, oh, well, even though, the picture is one river that becomes four rivers, just turn that around and make these your rivers, and then no problem, the Garden of Eden is here. Well, okay, I think Cush is still over here, though, and Moses is married to a Cushite woman, and I don't know about you, but if you hope to be married one day, do you think you're going to know where your spouse is from? And if Moses is married to a Cushite, do you think he knew where Ethiopia was on a map? I mean, he studied at Harvard of his day, and do you know that he knew the Nile River flows this way and the Tigris and Euphrates River flows that way? But hey, what's a continent among friends? We'll just move Eden here. I found that unconvincing. So other people said, no, it's here, and they almost connect, so, we'll just put Eden there. Well, the problem is still Cush, and the problem is that the Gihon is located right here in the text. So some better scholars, in fact, John Currid in the ESV Bible Atlas, he puts the suggestion of Eden here. And it's funny, can you tell the difference between these two? I don't know, it probably obscures with my drawing. But they changed the font size here and moved these arrows over, and they've eliminated Currid's. So this is the map that's in the ESV Study Bible. This is in the map that the ESV Study Bible is based on, but the ESV Study Bible editor omitted Eden as a possibility. That makes me a little mad, but hey, I'm still not, I still don't know what to do. So you're probably feeling a little like me. Okay, the Bible is true, but I try to find it on a map. Where is it? The best commentary on the Bible is the Bible. Where does Revelation 21:1 say the river of life is? It tells us verbatim where the tree of life, where the river of life is. It tells us that it's in heavenly Jerusalem. When we start thinking about Jerusalem and Eden, Jerusalem has a river that splits, at least eschatological Jerusalem. Jerusalem has cherubs. Jerusalem has the immediate presence of God. Jerusalem has the tree of life. Jerusalem has the river of life. And if Jerusalem is where ancient Eden was, then the exact place where Adam spiritually murdered the entire human race at a tree is the place where the God-man comes to a tree and unmurders all those who will ever come to him by faith. And once you realize, and the Bible affirms that in Ezekiel 41, we could see the other text. If we look through this, they're all going to be making the same point, that Eden and Jerusalem are connected. But remember how I said it's important to observe the text? And did you read in the text how they give you the measurement of Jerusalem? Did you read that in the text? It says 12,000 stadia. Well, a stadion, and it tells us the city is a cube. Did you know the only other cube in the Bible is the Holy of Holies? Did you know that? Huh. I wonder if New Jerusalem is like a heavenly Holy of Holies. But it gives us the measurement. So here's the measurement. A stadion is 607 feet. So if you want to know how big New Jerusalem is, just take 607 feet and multiply it by 12,000. If you did that, you get 7,284,000. I can't think in those terms. I think in miles, so I divide that by 5,280, and I get 1,379 miles. New Jerusalem's a cube, 1,400 miles cubed. I can't think in that. I can think in this. 1,400 miles is my house in Saudi to my friend who lives in Winnipeg, Canada. And it's talking about a city that's that big. The International Space Station is 200 miles tall. The International Space Station would circle the Earth 1/7 of the height of New Jerusalem. The beginning and end of the Bible are connected. The best commentary on the Bible is the Bible, and God isn't afraid of our questions. So that's where we'll pick it up on Wednesday. I'll see you then.